5 seconds. Yeah, buddy, we back at it again. That was perfect timing too, because I just got done looking at my phone. So today we talking about the birth of Jesus and the birth of Christmas at the same time, right? I know Nathan, he said he has some stuff, Bishop Nathan over here. He said he had some wanted to start off with something, get the party started. So let's go ahead and roll with that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, a lot of people celebrate Christmas, and almost in Christmas, everyone associates it as Jesus' birthday for the 25th of December. But this date was not established until 336 AD by Emperor Constantine, who wanted to reform Christianity by his standards and by Rome's standards and under his authority. So this 25th date became popularized with other pagan holidays. But truthfully, no one actually knows the date of Jesus' birth, and it wasn't until the 2nd century, about 67 to 100 plus over years, until Christians tried to figure out when Jesus was born. And it was possibly either in the 6th century BC era or 4th century BC. But Christians were arguing over his birthday in the 2nd century. But the funny thing is, Christians didn't actually focus on Jesus' birth. Originally, they were focusing on his baptism. And this was in earlier traditions when Jesus was seen to been adopted by God and possessed, if you will, by the Holy Spirit, as this was the earliest belief. And even this date has been lost. We think it was around the 6th of January or the 9th or even the 11th. And it's been lost due to Roman Catholic persecution. The oldest story we have of Jesus' birth comes from the proto-gospel of James. And in this story, we basically have Mary being listed as a temple virgin, being raised in the temple as a virgin, being associated with a dove, which was associated with temple virgins and priestesses. And in this story, Salome, who we don't actually know who she is, she's possibly either maybe a sister of Mary or a disciple of James the Just, which was a Christian tradition, especially in Gnostic traditions. And in this story, after giving birth to Jesus, Salome comes up to Mary, sticks her finger inside of Mary, and her hand starts burning up, and she says, "Woe to me, I tested the faith of the living God, and it's a miracle." And this was the oldest story of the birth story, and it was written around 145 AD, compared to, which is 2nd century, versus the canonical stories of the late 2nd century and 3rd century. So these texts are much older. And if you want, I can read it for everyone, or someone else can continue on. I can read it later. It's completely...
Go ahead. Go ahead. You got the text. You got the evidence in front of you. Go ahead and spill the beans. There ain't no need to keep them in the can. Cook them motherfuckers.
All right. So I'll basically start from here. Well, I can start from the original, because in this story here is different, because Jesus is born in a cave. So I'll start it from there. They stood in the cave, and a bright cloud overshadowed it. The midwife said, "My soul has been magnified today, for my eyes have seen a miraculous sign. Salvation has been born to Israel. Right away the cloud departed from the cave, and a great light appeared within, so that their eyes could not bear it. Soon that light departed until an infant could be seen, and it went and took hold of the breast of Mary, its mother. The midwife cried out," which is Salome, "This is a great day for me, for I have seen this new wonder." The midwife went out of the cave, and Salome met her. Never mind, Salome wasn't the midwife. And she said to her, "Salome, Salome, I can describe a new wonder to you. A virgin has given birth, contrary to her natural condition." Salome replied, "As the Lord my God lives, if I do not insert my finger and examine her condition, I will not believe that the virgin has given birth." The midwife went in and said to Mary, brace yourself, for there is no small controversy concerning you. Then Salome inserted her finger in order to examine her condition, and she cried out, Woe to me for my sin and faithfulness, for I have put the living God to test, and see, my hand is burning. Fall away from me. She kneeled before the master and said, O God of my father, remember that I am a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So as you can see here, this is a text, and the earliest text defending the virginity of Mary, which was later banned in the 4th century. So it was popularized and used by Christians for at least 200 years before being banned by the Roman Catholic Church. And before that, it was actually very popular, and it was even attributed as fact by the Roman Catholic Church beforehand, which is very interesting.
Right. Yeah, because I know according to the Dead Sea Scrolls, the birth of Christ is usually around 6 BC. Actually, I should pull that up on your account, but I'm not going to do it. But I posted it before, and it's pretty interesting because you talked about the time frame that you have. You can go online and see the roundabout dates and stuff like that. But the stuff that you just read, say again where that's from, and
the Proto-Gospel of James.
and
It's also called the Proto-Evangelical Gospel of James as well, but Proto-Gospel of James for short. And it was written 145 AD, 2nd century.
Okay, and why is that important to know? Why do you think that's important to know?
Well, one of the most important things about the text is the secret goodie in there, and it's the origins of Mary, where she comes from, and that's the temple, the same temple that Jesus goes through to save the children.
Mm-hmm.
Mary was also recorded as a dove. They're selling doves in the temple, so they're selling virgin brides. She herself was placed for an auction, but placed in the hands of Joseph to be the caregiver until someone more worthy comes, basically, and she gets pregnant. Mm-hmm. So this is interesting. So possibly they say, well, in this story, the virgin birth, but if she was received from the temple, it's possibly something happened in the temple as well. So you can place different scenarios into this if you want, use your own imagination. But still, this still means that Jesus goes to the temple, rescues the children in honor of his mother to stop the same trade that his mother was a victim of. Mm-hmm. You could even argue to say that to stop this practice, the Messiah is here now, but I don't think so, because he calls the priest predators, human traffickers, rebels of their own people, basically. So that's a huge text. And then you also see in other examples of him stating, whoever harms a child should drown themselves. So I see this text as an insider of this because it shows the temple traditions of raising young girls, which the Pharisees would later reject as modern Judaism would form. So it was because of that stand. So it's interesting. Then you have texts, say, of the Talmud that condemn Jesus. So to make them look like they're the good guys and not the bad guys, but in reality, they were the bad guys. Most of the world were the bad guys. They're the ones that are running this trade. So that's why it's an important text.
In the Greek, they use the word leistes, which has like a deeper meaning than when Jesus says, "You're turning my father's house into a den of thieves." The word thieves it's not like in Greek, it's actually kleptis from like the word klepto, but leistes is a different word that has a deeper meaning. And when you look in the context of ancient Greek literature, it's actually used like pirates and sex traffickers, and it's a real like morbid term.
100%. It was also even used in results and when you said piracy, which is similar to kidnapping as well, which was associated with this as well, because the zealots that rebelled against Rome, they were kidnapping as well. They didn't just kidnap Romans, they kidnapped their own people that were loyal to Rome, and they would assassinate with knives. They were quite violent as well. So it was associated with violence.
You know, I wonder why this isn't part of what's written in the ancient text.
Several different, pros.
I was saying, it's amazing to me to know that a lot of this is not actually written in the Bible. Well, the Bible is the books, but certain books keep it from being written in there. And I wonder why it's not in there, because that's something that's important to know.
Because the word
that's why the Proto-Gospel of James was banned as well. Because of the reason why it was banned is because if you add that text in with the other text and you add that scene in the temple and you add Virgin Mary in the temple as a dove, it all connects. So you have people selling. The actual word they use doesn't just mean selling, it means acquiring a slave or purchasing a slave. So they're selling women, so that's what's going on. So if you read what's going on in the text, which clearly states in the Proto-Gospel of James that they're auctioning off Mary. So they have the virgin girl tradition. So what they would do back then is from the ages of 6 to 14, they were passed off into marriage to the Jewish elite. You couldn't just go in there unless you were off somebody. You couldn't just be this bum and walk in and expect you had to have an income. You had to be at least a merchant, or for a particular lot of virgins, you had to be of nobility. So you had to be of the priestly class or at least a descendant of them. So you had to be of renown. So the ones that didn't marry as well, which were kept by the Pharisees, say if there's a temple and he wanted to have, say, a concubine, he had a wife, he could have a secret concubine, a slave, if you will. So the Jewish lady would stay in the temple and they would basically be there, say, until the age of 40, and then they could retire from the temple or stay in the temple. They were basically regarded as a slave. So they would serve the elites. So the priests would have these girls for themselves. So certain ones they favored that only they could touch. So we have some going on. And we also find that within the text too.
Gospel of James you're referring to, it talks about Anna and Joachim, which are the mother and father of the Virgin Mary. And Anna was treated in the same way. Like her feet weren't able to touch the ground till she was a few years old. She was a temple priestess or whatever. Yeah. And if you're familiar with the Gospel of Philip, which is a non-canonical gospel, it says, Jesus said, "My Father who is in heaven." And if he had not had another father, he simply would have just said, "My Father."
Another thing too, I want to point out too, as well, regarding the temple virgins, before I forget, their purpose wasn't just for marriage's sake, but because this is the reason why I say this is because the Sadducees didn't really so much involve themselves in it. What they involved themselves was with the money trade of it. So they were the ones running the trade of money. Whereas it was the Pharisees' business, Sadducees were the ones in charge of temple tax, so they were in charge of profits of the temple. So they got a cut out of it, so they allowed it. But the Pharisees, the reason they had it in place was because they believed one of these girls would be a holy bride that would be worthy enough, who would marry a high priest or king to conceive the Messiah. So this was the term that they were meant to serve. The word Messiah as well has a complex of meanings that evolve with time. And even the term Son of God in Hebrew means a human being with a personal relationship with God. But Messiah means basically anyone who has helped the Jewish people, or who has conquered the world, made the world Jewish, or who's made Jerusalem the greatest nation. That's a later time frame though. Or basically freed the Jewish people from their captors. Beforehand, it was anyone who helped the Jewish people, or someone who had a greater understanding of the law and of God. So that was the traditional oldest term of Messiah that would evolve with time. But before this, even with the original term, as mentioned, not all Jews accepted the Messiah or even wanted a Messiah. And it wasn't there earlier Judaism. It was only amongst Essene sects. So it's interesting.
Yeah, there were a few Messiahs. Apparently they didn't accomplish what the Old Testament had promised. But yeah, there was a few Messiahs, people claiming to be the Messiah. I believe even John the Baptist was supposed to be some type of Messiah.
Yep. And there were some communities that believed that Jesus and John were both the Messiahs. They had two Messiahs, which was not uncommon for Essenes. Before Jesus' time and John the Baptist, there was the teacher of righteousness, and they had two Messiahs. They had the priest and the king, and then they had the bad guy, basically the teacher of darkness, or whatever his name was, which is interesting. So that's before Jesus' time. So they believed that both Jesus and John were the Messiahs, which isn't uncommon. And some even had the belief of three Messiahs. You had the priest, the king, and the warrior. So Barabbas, for instance, which is interesting. So that was a different sect as well. So you had many different sects of regarding what Jesus was. But in association to the 25th of December birth, these are all pagan origins. As it was a way to keep the pagan holidays and their traditions, but replacing them with Christian ones. So that way people wouldn't argue as well and be put out of place. Mithra, an Iranian god, also honored by Romans and Greeks, and even by Romano-Briton warrior classes, was born on 25th of December. And also Constantine was associated with the Mithra secret cults because it was a warrior society class cult worship. The Egyptian sky god, sometimes both the sun and moon god Horus, was also possibly born on 25th of December. Apollo, the Greek god and Roman sun god, was also born on December 25th. And Constantine was both an Apollo and Mithra worshipper, along with Helios, who was also possibly born on the 25th of December, which is also reference to the one above. And Christians would also use this term in implying for their god, which is interesting. So the Christmas tree as well, pagan origins, as you know, Tyrone, Sumerian, and Babylonian. It's also got Germanic origins. The modern Christian belief of the Christmas tree in their homes, that's German, basically from the 16th century. But the earliest origins to what I could find in depiction of the closest thing to a Christmas tree would be around the 2nd century. It was nowhere inside their homes. It was just a tree outside their home. During pagan holidays, they would decorate their homes with Christian symbols to say, hey, this is a Christian house. You can have safe refuge here during the pagan holiday. So that was how it started. So all these other traditions were basically pagan adapted in order for Constantine to unify his empire. And it wasn't just Romans that lived in the Roman Empire. It was a large, giant empire. He had all mixture of cultures. So he was trying to have this unified for all cultures. They didn't judge you on culture back then. They judged you on your social class. So the elites always had their own secret religions. So
right. Who you know, that's always a hot topic, you know. When was Jesus born? You know, what was his date? You know, and there's only but so many calendars that were used back then to come up with that date, and of course they use different ones. I mean, even today the Ethiopian calendar is used differently than what it is. It's like what 5,000 something in the Ethiopian calendar. And honestly, from what I've learned, is that the Ethiopian Bible is actually the oldest Christian Bible. So, or at least that's what I've heard, at least. So it just makes me wonder what date that they really use. You know, like how did they come to that date? Because if we use the Roman calendar, I think that's what it was at that time frame.
I've read back in the day, like they would measure time by the birth of the dynasty of the king. Like when a king was born, they would refer to in the time of king whatever, or in the dynasty of whatever. Like and Jesus is known as the King of Kings. So I guess the world, you know, I guess the conquering empire, which is Rome, had came to the conclusion that we're all gonna, you know, just set the date at the time of the King of Kings, which is Jesus Christ. So that's what I
makes sense to me.
Yeah,
it makes sense to me because the Roman Empire was in charge at that time, right?
Yeah.
So,
they killed off the Phoenician Empire. The whole what is the place? Shoot. I can't even remember the name, but yeah, all the Phoenicians, they ran half of the empire, and you know the Mediterranean, like Rome or Italy, was the middle of the you know, the trading port. It was like if they had control of that area, they could rule the empire. So they just like wiped out the whole Phoenician Empire. Shoot, it's gonna bother me if I can't figure out what the name of the empire is. Phoenician Empire, or
the Phoenicians were also Canaanites too, and people would travel all around the world just to visit the Canaanite temple virgins or priestesses or temple prostitutes, if you will, and they would come there for lavish gifts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that wasn't so much just done in order for sex. It was also to gain favor by these girls because they were associated with prophecy and divine protection. So it wasn't just simple as you going there for a hanky-panky. It was you receiving divine protection from the gods and prophecy, and basically
Who said
receiving a
hanky
blessing.
panky? I ain't heard that saying in a while.
You want to go see the oracles.
Yeah. So you got a bit more for your buck, basically, than what someone would today. You'd be incented with oil, you'd be receiving prophecy and everything, and then you would have a ritual clean bath. So I've got something cool. I pulled up a text for you I want to quickly read. This is in chapter 10 of the Proto-Gospel James, or Gospel James. So check this out. This is in regards to virgins. Then the priest held a council and said, we should make a curtain for the Lord's temple. And the priest said, call to me the undefiled virgins from the tribe of David. Now that's important. So they were going through the ones of the line of David for their messiahs. The servants went out looking for them and found 7 virgins. The priest then remembered that the child Mary was from the tribe of David, and that she was undefiled before God. The servants went out and led her back and brought her into the Lord's temple. And the priest said, cast lots, bets, before me to see who will spin the gold, the asbestos, which they did use this back then, the fine linen, the silk, the sapphire blue. By the way, asbestos was most likely the cause of the Egyptian temple curses, or pyramid curses. The scarlet and the true purple. Mary drew the lot for the true purple and the scarlet, and taking them she returned home. At that time, Zacharias became silent. Samuel took his place until Zacharias spoke again. But Mary took the scarlet and began to spin it. So this is a tradition for the marriage, basically, or will be auctioned off. So she's later placed in the care of Joseph. So that's a whole scene about temple virgins. So
yeah, the word I was looking for was Carthage, the Carthaginians. And the term Phoenician comes from the Greek word phonitike, meaning purple, reference to the famous purple dye, the Tyrian purple.
And you see the purple mentioned in there too.
Yeah, they extracted it from the snails, and it was actually used. They used the robe to cover Jesus in that purple robe.
Yeah, and that would also be to mock his mother as well, and where he came from. So it's everything symbolism too. Royal color as well was purple. So, but even when we discussed before,
purple was always a royal color, though. That's actually
it was.
Yeah, because it was expensive to get that dye.
Yeah, that's why when they dressed Jesus in purple to humiliate him, or I guess try to humiliate him, I was like, y'all motherfuckers are stupid. That's low. That's royalty right there. What you talking about?
Here's your king.
Yeah. Like you wasted. Yeah, you're right. But the point is that why they never wasted the purple dye or none of that stuff. It was a royal color. Like you couldn't even touch it if you wasn't royalty. You know what I mean? Like you could not have your hands on it. You couldn't be no regular old Joe Smo going down the store and say, "Yo, let me get that red that purple shirt right there." Like,
I was thinking it's because to honor his mother, because his mother would have came from the line of David. I don't think Joseph really may not have existed. He came somewhat later. All the earlier stories speak of Mary or Joseph, being the biological father. But around the same time of Joseph, we also have Ben Pentara, which is interesting. So we're not really too sure, but we do know that Mary was the oldest of the speaking of with Jesus, and she's mentioned there at the crucifixion. Joseph isn't there, so unless he died on that sort of thing, but it doesn't mention anything about his death in the Gospels or anything. Only non-canonical accounts might go into it. But really, when Christians first focused on celebration, they focused on his baptism. That was the most important part of Christianity, that and the resurrection. They were the 2 dates that they honored. But the baptism was symbolic for when he became adopted by God. And adopted by God is symbolic for different things. One, it's a rebirth, to be reborn, and adopted by God to realize you're a son of God, or to be put in God's likeness. Many Gnostic Christians believe that you become Logos in flesh or Logos in spirit. So the spirit one would have become after his death, and basically his spirit was saved. And we had others that believed that the Holy Spirit basically possessed him of his will, and he was no longer quite human, but basically serving the will of the Holy Spirit. So that's why the baptism was associated with one of the most important dates. So even adopted by God is just to realize that you are a son of the Most High as well in Judaism. So to live in accordance to God's will, to have a greater understanding of God, similar to Messiah. So
Right.
again, not all believed in Messiah, so that term would have just meant that. But in some Jewish traditions, if you were born of a virgin, you wouldn't have been recognized the Messiah either. So that kind of destroys some accounts on some Judaism. But other Jews did believe in the virgin birth too. There was weird variations of Judaism. There was never one Judaism. So anyone that says, "Oh, it's this way," fuck them. No, it was all these ways. We don't fucking know. So I don't fucking know. We have guests.
Nah, you're right, because you can't get two Christians today to get in the same room and have a conversation about the Bible and agree on everything on it. They'll be arguing about each other what they believe in. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing because I'm actually it's so funny. I'm reading this book right here, right now, right? Or I just finished it today. Actually, it's called "The 10 Most Important Things You Can Say to a Mormon," right? And then in this book, this person, it's funny, right? Hey, I got it all tabbed up too because I'm waiting for that motherfucking.
Let me post out his book real quick. I did too, man. When they came knocking, I got him. When I got him, and they fucking be sticking around for me. I don't just shut the door on them. I'll be like, "Oh, you want to talk about this shit? Let's talk about this shit."
Hey! As soon as I hear that, yeah, what you want? Hey, do you have time to talk about God? And I'm like, sure. What you want to talk about? Yeah, we're Mormons. And I'm like, wait 1 second. Let me go get my book real quick. I got some motherfucking questions.
Knocking at my door.
But I got this book, and it's funny because I got this from the local VA, and it's for free. And I always scrummage around looking at books for free, finding them and stuff like this. And it's a pretty good book. That's why I got it tabbed up. And the whole time in this book, this person is trying to tell people who are Mormons that what they believe in is based off false information, right? And that you need to believe in Jesus Christ, right? Because there's nothing before Jesus Christ. And that it uses the King James Version, the NSAB, and the New International Version, I believe, in there for some of its sources. And it's funny to me because they're telling these people, they're saying if you're a Mormon and you believe this, you need to go to older text, basically, which is the KJV or the NSAB and whatnot. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, bro, you need to go back further than the motherfucking shit than what you talking about. You need to go back to the Sumerians, the Egyptians. You know what I'm saying? You stopped where you felt like your narrative was backed up. And I'm just thinking the whole time. And then the whole time I'm reading this book, this dude, his titles don't make sense. Okay. I know I can't talk right. That's why I'm better at writing. But to put this in the book form and have an argument about, okay, your religion is bogus and you need to stop believing in what you believe in and go to the King James Version. I'm like, what about the shit that came before the King James Version? You know what I mean? What about the Geneva version? Let's talk about the Geneva version. Why wouldn't you want to go to that? Or why not go to the ancient Hebrew text? You know, something like that. And I'm just like, they want you to go to their sources that back up their narrative, right? And that's why the Bible has forbidden books, because it's so easy to pick up a Bible and be like, well, this shit ain't in my book. Well, you got the wrong Bible, because there's Bibles out there that has more books than in it. And plus, the Bible only means books in the first place, so you missing some books. You know what I'm saying? So
even the Old Testament has stuff missing too.
Yeah, the Ethiopian Bible is fucking got like 80 something books or something. Like, it's got a shit ton of books. The Ethiopian Bible has a bunch of books that we don't have in our King James version.
Here, I'll read something real quick. Hold on, let me see. Hold on, let me find one of these tabs.
What do you got?
Hold on, I'm gonna look for one.
I'm kind of wanting to see that. What's in that motherfucker? That looks good.
Yeah, like, it's crazy, man. I want to find a good one that I just marked, because I read the whole thing today. And it's so crazy because this dude. Okay, here we go. He says, when asked to pray about the Book of Mormon, ask, which Book of Mormon do you want me to pray about? The 1830 edition, the 1921 edition, or today's edition, which has over 4,000 changes from the original 1830 edition. Then use this as a launch pad. Now listen, then use this as a launch pad to point out the folly of trusting one's internal salvation to a book with so many changes. I'm thinking about how many motherfucking changes came from the Septuagint to the King James version.
Oh yeah,
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm thinking about.
of the Greek text to a King James Christian, the second in charge of the church. His face was, he walked straight away from me. So I've gone to the priest, he's in charge, and you can see him as I'm going up to the priest, and he's like, I have to go away and pray about this. And it's like, you're stating that the King James version is perfect. It's not.
It's not. You know what? Matter of fact, you know what? I'll type it in AI right now. How many changes?
Joseph Smith was
I can answer some in the modern text, if I remember right by memory. I think it was in the one particular modern Christian text, and that's before the modern American version they've made, which is the closest to the Greek. The last ones I think they made in reference to the Watkins and Hopkins Bible Society ones, and Collins as well. 150 something sentences were taken out. They said they put them in the fine print, but no, they didn't. They're still removed. So there's still 150 that's being removed. But that dude's also printed out a bunch of other stuff. He's printed out Joys of Gay Sex, Satanic Bible. So he's out for the money. He'll just remove stuff in order to have his audiences somewhat happy, basically. He's censored a lot of things, but also Christians and stuff would want things censored too. So that's why the American New Standard Version is a bit better, because they had non-Christians get together and somewhat translate some of the text, but they still needed permission from the Christians with some of the text, so that obviously it's still pulled out of his asshole, which kind of sucks. You're best off reading it yourself. You know, a lot better off reading it yourself. But yeah, it's stupid. So you can't basically have a Bible recognized by them without their stamp of approval. So
in The Golden Bow, Sir James George Fraser discusses the symbolic significance of the pine tree in ancient rituals and festivals, particularly as a representation of life, fertility, and rebirth. He highlights its role in the worship of deities like Attis, where decorated pine trees were central to spring ceremonies commemorating death and renewal. Fraser also connects these practices to Roman celebrations like Saturnalia, which used evergreens as symbols of hope during the winter solstice. These ancient traditions influenced later customs such as the Christmas tree, blending pagan and Christian themes of eternal life and renewal. So yeah, this shit's been going on. They've been just adapting it to modern times, and you know.
Hey, let me. What did I say? Do you remember the number that guy said for how many differences?
4,000. 4,000.
Yes, 8,000, 10,000 as well.
4,000. Now look. I'm gonna say this again. This is how I verify my information. This is why I always tell people that. Well, I don't tell people, don't write a book and not have information. But I tell people, if you're gonna say something, at least have some backed up information. Because this is what this dude said. He says, when asked to pray about the Book of Mormon, ask which Book of the Mormon do you want me to pray about, the 1830 edition, the 1921 edition, or today's edition, which has over 4,000 changes from the original 1830 edition. Then use this as a launch pad to point out the folly of trusting one's internal salvation to a book with so many changes. Now I'm looking over here and I typed in ChatGPT, and they say that if we count textual variants, omitted books, and translation differences, the total numbers of changes could roughly range from 10,000 to 15,000 differences between the Septuagint and the King James version.
Wow.
There's a lot of changes, but
now I'm going to change this. Hold up. When asked to pray about the Bible, which book of the Bible should I trust?
There's even more changes, but I think I want to mention about the older Book of Mormons. And I know some of the verses I've pulled up, and they're like that because not many people do know there's different versions. I didn't know this because the older versions had heavy elements of racism, and that's why they changed it, because they want to have African Americans join their religion. At first, they were banned. So, something funny? There's actually a Mormon group that went to Mexico. The reason why, and they choose to stay, they fight the cartels. The whole reason they chose to move and stay in this particular place is because that particular place in America, where they moved from, banned cousin marriage. They went there and they want to have the old ways of Mormonism, and they want to keep marrying their cousins. So they stayed there and they fight the cartels in order to do so, which is hardcore. A lot of them died in the process too. And that still goes on today. So you got Mormons with rifles doing gun battles, fighting Mexican cartels just to marry their cousins. So, yeah.
Oh, my God. Hold on, bro.
It's pretty hardcore.
Look at this.
I always thought they were friendly guys riding around.
He ain't even fucking
You got some hardcore Mormons.
Yo, he is
Even the Book of Mormon was a little, some of it, not all of it, little bits of it. I'll say any good parts, I guess, were somewhat stolen from some Gnostic elements, or at least inspired by it. But there's some craziness in the Book of Mormon too, you know. So even with Scientology, there's a lot of cults in the sense that ripped off from Gnosticism too.
Hey, yo, Neil. Nathan, I just got a like on Facebook of our stream by Neil Sandler of Gnostic Informant.
So you just shared ours?
Yeah, like I've been sharing our stream, and Neil Sandler just gave us a like.
That's cool. That's pretty dope.
Hey, you know, it's so funny. You not lying about Mexico, Nathan. I just typed it in ChatGPT.
Yeah, no.
It says Mormon colonies in Mexico in the late 19th century. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints established colonies in northern Mexico, primarily in Chihuahua and Sonora.
He's drinking moonshine while having two cousins at once.
Look. The Barrian family, who are part of the offshoot of the LDS. Okay, so yeah, that's them. Let's see, cartels.
Yeah, it was pretty hardcore, right?
Yeah,
there's no record of organized Mormon militia groups actively fighting cartels in an ongoing way. But why do they say ongoing? Let me see. I want to look up something.
Because it's families that choose to stay and fight them, basically. Come in little things. It's not like huge skirmishes or nothing like that. It's just like occasional fucking shoot-offs, like get off my land, basically, and cartels might shoot back and ambush them because they want to use the place to, you know, smuggle through their, you know, narcotics or whatever. Oh, okay. And the Mormons want to stay there so they can marry the cousins. I was going to say the moonshine joke, but they don't drink, so.
And you said they fought each other, though? You said they was fighting each other?
Oh, they were fighting cartels. So they would stop cartels from putting their drugs in there. The reason why the Mormons are there is because they want to be able to marry their cousins.
I mean, there was violence.
Yes.
There, not actually any, you know. Okay, so this is what it says. It says their resistance has sometimes been interpreted as fighting back. Yeah, there was a motherfucking fight, bro.
Yeah, they were shooting each other.
Oh yeah, no Mormons out there with AK-47, sawed-off shotguns, and all kinds of stuff. Well, they was ready. They was representing. They weren't playing no games with nobody. They came here to teach the Latter-day Saints to these people out there, bro.
They've got a history of fighting. You know, fighting for their beliefs. A lot of religions
like that. They said we know, and you know they went to a bad place. That man, dang them up.
I give them credit. They're not the ones that started it or nothing like that. You know,
nah, but they damn so didn't want to. They still did stop it though. I guarantee you, they were like, nah, it's so bad. They didn't even want that on records. The cartels didn't even want that on record.
Yeah, because they lost a few times as well, which is funny. They don't like putting out there that they lose one or twice. You know, but there's all different cartels.
That's pretty interesting because when I was reading this book, they said that they tried to find Mormons in Central and Southern America, and they couldn't find any evidence there. But you know, obviously, you said it. I mean, I'm not going to put all my faith into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I put a lot of faith in ChatGPT though. I kind of like it. I mean, I could still kind of. You know, I gotta ask the right questions though before I start fucking, you know, accepting it as fact. You know, like I do know like what I want to dig for before I feel like it's gonna hand me the information that I know that is not correct. But I also want to bring up Nathan had recently done like I don't know how many video series of the Gospel of Matthew, and the birth of Jesus. There's a whole lot of references in the Gospel of Matthew. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure Nathan has a whole lot of stuff that he's dug from the Gospel of Matthew. and just recently he made a bunch of videos. Got to check out Spiritual Level of Being and watch those Gospel of Matthew. It's basically your translation, isn't it?
Yeah, my translation as well. In that story of Gospel of Matthew too, we have the Magi that are foreigners, not of just people, of religion. Magi, Zoroastrian priest. So these guys were very well renowned. They were even invited to other lands to educate kings. They were politicians in their own right. They were powerful priests. They were oracles. They would tell prophecy. They would tell kings not to go to battle. Like Xerxes and even his sons and their sons would revere the Magi. And
they give time to talk about our frankincense and myrrh.
So they've given Jesus and some gold.
Yeah.
This was
we got to
basically
out
but the Magi were crazy. They would smoke this with cannabis and opium. So they would inhale the fumes and they would pass out, receive visions. And in the Gospel of Matthew, we see them receiving a dream vision. And I propose that if this story happened, I don't quite think so, the way it did. If they did, they were Zoroastrian groups that believed in reincarnation, a reincarnation Zoroastrian cult, because not all Zoroastrians did believe in reincarnation. Some believed in the punishment or eternal afterlife. Mm-hmm. Different variations of Zoroastrian. Long story short, these Magi would have believed Jesus was a reincarnation of Zoroaster. That's the feel I get from it. I'm not saying that's fact either. Now, they give him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. What? Because he was born on a certain date. They were known for observing the stars and getting high.
Yeah.
So no doubt there was some sort of reincarnation cult there. Now, I also think that was placed in there because that would be a way of recognizing Zoroastrianism as a legitimate faith by the Christians and by the Jewish people. Because some Jews did recognize Zoroastrianism as a one true faith along with theirs, worshipping one God. Now, not all Jews had this belief at all. The Sadducees that disliked Jesus, they did not believe in an afterlife. They did not believe in angels. And angel names came from the Zoroastrian faith, by the way. They did not believe in anything beyond the 5 books of Moses. So they did not believe in spirits. They did not believe in any devil figure or any Satan. They only believed in God, and that God was beyond all human affairs, similar to Gnosticism, that did not involve himself in human affairs. And once you were dead, you were dead. You turned to dust. Now, they believed that the Pharisees were basically Persian converted into the Zoroastrian movement. So they would call them Parsi, meaning a mockery, calling them Persian bakery, basically saying that you're not even Jewish anymore. So the Pharisees would insult the Sadducees and call them basically Greeks. So you're saying that you're not Jewish anymore, you've gone Hellenistic. So the Sadducees were a Hellenistic form of Judaism. The Pharisees had a different belief. They believed in the Messiah, the Sadducees did not. They believed in angels. They also believed in afterlife. So they believed that if the soul was, the form of punishment for the soul was turned into nothingness by God. So you were either accepted in heaven or you would just turn into dust. But they would bury their dead, waiting for the resurrection of the dead, believing that God would resurrect the dead. But the long story short of why I'm mentioning all this is because the Pharisees accepted the Zoroastrians. Now, Cyrus the Great was a Zoroastrian Persian king, and 600 years before Jesus, he was made Messiah of the Jewish people. So the Pharisees and even some Essenes held him in regard. The Sadducees did not. So they hated anyone that called themselves a Messiah or recognized themselves a Messiah. They didn't mind Cyrus the Great because he built the second temple. He rebuilt their temple. So the Pharisees revered him. So long story short, it's possible that these Zoroastrians that visited him, that gave him the nice smelling frankincense and myrrh, which was worth a great deal back then. It was basically worth its weight in gold. Could have even seen the reincarnation of one of their old kings, possibly even Cyrus the Great. Who knows? We don't know. It's speculation. But even the gospel accounts, they don't agree with each other. Matthew has all different accounts too. So Matthew has the temple scene, which is one particular reason why I like it. Jesus saving children shouting out, Hosanna, save us. Why would they be shouting, save us? Why are they selling these doves? Why in the proto-gospel of James, which is older, states that Mary was a dove in the temple? It's a lot of things that are adding up. So, yeah, that's why I like translate to give you your own opinion.
The frankincense and myrrh were burned by the royalty in like festivals and stuff to display their wealth. Like
Yes.
the more they would burn, the more wealthy they appeared, or whatever, how luxurious their event was. You know, so we'd be burning their shit. Hmm.
Yeah, well, 100% that's correct. It was well renowned in many temples. The Zoroastrian faith, the Jewish faith, the Canaanite faith, even Greeks, they all were lighting up frankincense and myrrh and breathing it in as well. And some of them would even take psychedelics. But there's one account that suggests that Jesus was able to pay for his movement with the use of this frankincense, gold, and myrrh. More likely, it was Mary Magdalene that was funding his movement, and it could be possibly that place was put in place in order to decredit Mary Magdalene and also associate Zoroastrianism with a true faith as well. Who bloody knows? Not too sure. Like, I think maybe that might have been placed in there by the Zoroastrians that converted to Christianity. So it's hard to say, as some Zoroastrian faiths would adapt to Christianity, as Judaism and Christianity, and even arguably some Canaanite religions would adapt from the Zoroastrian faith beforehand. This is one reason why we don't have too many. We don't really have any ancient Zoroastrian texts. We more have ones that came after the time of Christianity because of destruction. Islam destroyed a lot of texts as well. So did the Catholics as well, Christians as well, and Zoroastrians would also fight amongst themselves as well. So you had that as well. So yeah, a lot of infighting in ancient past as well. And the Zoroastrians were no saints either. Like, they were scared of Mani, who started the first worldwide religion of his time, which was Gnostic Christianity. And it spread through the whole worldwide of its time, of the known world. So it spread throughout Europe and Asia, and even parts of Africa. Now, Mani was seen as a threat to both the Zoroastrians and even by some Buddhists and Hindus who viewed him as the ultimate threat, because even those in what we would call the lands of Buddhism and Hinduism would call him Buddha. So when he's gone back to the Persian lands, basically where the Magi were held in regard, at first they liked him because they seen him as a combination of their ideas mixed in Buddhism and Christianity and Gnostic Christianity. So because he grew too much power, they skinned him alive. And they were hoping that would be the end of his religion. It didn't. It would continue on. But it would split into various offshoots and then cease to be somewhat, but still continued on. But traditions put into other religions that were in Asia, which is quite interesting. He was also known for poetic works, his art, and writing his own gospel accounts. And he claimed that he received insights from his divine double, and that this was Christ, that we all have Christ within us. This is our divine double, our higher self, basically. So he was an intelligent man, also known for music, healing, medicine. And he used to be a part of an Essene Christian sect, one such Ebonite movement, and he mocked them for their repetitive baptism rituals, which was an early part of Christianity, which was regular baptism, which was also why the baptism of Jesus was also one of the most important dates, because it was the day that he became adopted by God, became the Logos in flesh, or became the Logos in spirit. Which is pretty cool. I love the word Logos.
That's right. So, want to show us your little Gospel of John? Do you have it on hand? Or?
I have one behind me. These ones here, believe it or not, these are actually bodged copies that I messed up. One here I smudged up the ink on top of my Gospel of Thomas. One here I had to go over the ink that didn't go on properly. So I've got proper accounts on me. Just wait there. I've got good ones.
That's right.
So I won't sell anyone one I messed up on. I'll only give good copies, and 30% I give to charity.
Yeah, I've been seeing you posting that you have these for sale.
Hey, promote your book too,
I wish
bro.
I had the Proto Gospel of John, but this is the Gospel of John, like the canonical text. This is called the St. John Fragment, and it's on real Egyptian papyrus paper as well. So
Wow.
That's the oldest text that we have. Basically, it's a replica of it. It's not the actual text. I'd be a rich man if I did. You'd know me across the world. Random dude puts $100,000 in everyone's bank account.
How
around
dare
the
you
world.
touch that without gloves?
Yes, I would not. So this is the oldest fragment we have. People are reading a text, and what I translated from, I will eventually translate from this. I have spoken it once or twice in public, but the actual text they read like this is from the 4th century. 200 years. This is older.
And that is the newest, oldest version.
And it's not even the whole thing. The actual text would be double-sided. I did not put it double-sided. I just had it as the one. And I've also got the Coptic Gospel of Thomas. Now, it's something interesting. And I wish I knew Coptic, because they don't tell you what this is. This is where the Coptic Gospel of Thomas begins from. These are the secret sayings of the living Jesus, which Didymus Thomas wrote down. But no one talks about what's up here. Why?
Yeah.
I've got some translated. It's a little bit different. I couldn't get it all translated because some words wouldn't.
Look at Nathan over there trying to be a motherfucking knowledge.
I would like you to check that out, by the way, Lorenzo, on ChatGTP. Try and figure out what is on top here, because no one has released that.
Okay. I could take that image, upload it, and it should.
Yeah, I'll send you an image of it.
All right.
I'll send you an image that I copied from too.
Oh wow.
And that's the Gospel of Mary. That's not the whole thing. There's meant to be another text up a little bit up
so
there.
real.
So I made it look like that actual thing. I might have lost the copy trying to make it like this as well, but progress is progress. And
are you going to do any copper ones?
And you can see the cross that's still on there. That's the Coptic Gospel of Judas, and this was copied from a Greek text, and the Greek text is arguably very old, and it's the Greek text, though we don't have it, would be older than the canonical Gospels. The oldest text we have is the Greek Gospel of Thomas. This is just the most complete copy of the Coptic text of Codex 2, the front page discovered in the Nag Hammadi Library. We have got older text. So this text is possibly written around the 3rd or 4th century. They suggest 4th because of the style of writing used and the dialect of Coptic that was used. Though it could be 3rd century, but we have got older Coptic texts too that are a mixture of half Coptic and Greek.
And,
because that's proto-Coptic.
I've heard that the Gospel of Thomas was considered like Q source. Is that what you've heard?
Yeah, I've heard it's been considered from the Q source as well. Yeah.
Yeah, like that is the Q source that everybody's talking about. All 4 Gospels, Mark, Luke, Matthew, and John, are referring to the Q, and that Gospel of Thomas might be that Q.
But yeah, no, they do that. I also one for the Gospel of Thomas is the oldest we have in the Greek text. Because like even carbon dating suggests it could be anywhere from 30 years to 50 years or 60 years, maybe even as late as 70. But that's more for the biased people. The carbon dates more suggest anywhere between 30 to 50 years after Jesus' death. So that makes it the oldest Gospels, not just the oldest, but older than the writings of Paul. And Paul are older than the canonical text. So this is older than that. But the funny thing is what they don't talk about. This is what they want to keep hidden. And that Greek text that we have was copied from an even older Greek text. So if that was written 30 years after Jesus' death, there's a 90% chance. That's a high fucking statistic, by the way. So a very good chance now that we're talking of that was written during the time that Jesus was actually alive, and would suggest these are the living words of Jesus, meaning that these would be the only words that we have that were written while Jesus was still alive, which also suggests why most scholars all suggest that this text contains the historical sayings of Jesus, whereas the canonical texts only have 15%. So that's a big difference and a big gap. So that's very interesting. That would suggest that the oldest text would be the Gospel of Thomas and Mary, which is very interesting.
And also, I've heard that the earliest gospel that was written was the Gospel of Mark, which ends with Mark 16, verse 9 and through 12 that are missing. And whatever Mark chapter 16, verse 8 ends with, trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. And verses 9 through 20 were added later on, which were the resurrection of,
4th century.
They created these other verses. And
I wouldn't say create so much. They stole them from Gnosticism, from Gnostic Christian elements, and then they basically reinterpreted them to fit an orthodoxy view. Because the oldest stories of the resurrection comes from the Gnostic Christians, but that was either as the Logos in spirit, which was with a carpetration that And other Jewish Christians believe that the Christ spirit had left him during the time of the crucifixion and either had been lifted up into spirit and the spirit descended upon the disciples, or went back into the body and resurrected Jesus. And that what explains the resurrection. So there's both. Or that it was a dream vision they seen. So that's interesting. So they might have seen it in a vision that he was alive and he's come and visit them, and why they could believe that you could contact and you could achieve the Christ spirit, or that his spirit appeared in the Logos, so being God's word, he was made God's only begotten son, which is where the Carpocratian belief of the united Trinity comes from. So the inventors of the Trinity being the monad, Logos, and Zoe. So Zoe being the Holy Spirit, being feminine. So Sophia being wisdom, God's feminine wisdom. Also being spiritual life, being symbolic for one's own spiritual relationship with God. Basically, not currency, word for the abundance you receive when having a relationship with God. So the true virtue of life. So eternal life, basically, meaning so obtaining it. So returning to being in union with God. So returning to heaven, the Paroma example. So that's a Carpocratian belief, which is in the Gospel of John, being in the beginning there was Logos, but that's not in with, and life being Zoe, that's not in the Old Testament account. They don't mention the Holy Spirit. They might mention, they don't mention it as a Trinity. When they reference the Holy Spirit, it's a power of God, not a different aspect. Where if you go Gnosticism, it's a different aspect, but one. So still a Trinity of sorts. So again, that's a Gnostic invention. And that comes back from Gnostic Judaism of the 1st century BC era with God's femininity. So again, we still see older roots within Gnosticism. We have the Mihaja. Sorry if I butchered that name. They were a Jewish Essene sect, but they're kind of Essene. They're what started the Essenes. So they are Essenes because they were around when other Essenes were living. So they are an Essene sect. But basically, they would be one of the starting factions that would split, and we would associate the splits with the Essenes we know today. So they come from this Gnostic group. They had a very different belief. They believed that this world wasn't created by God, that God was far beyond it and didn't interfere with human affairs, similar to the Sadducee belief of God. So they had to get it from somewhere. They believed that the demiurge created this world, as he wasn't evil, or he was somewhat ignorant in a sense, but created the earth in order for the will of the Father, using elements of the Father that he did not know or couldn't comprehend. So he's somewhat of a lieutenant, and then makes angels, and then the world was meant to be restored in its original spiritual state, which is trippy, which is descending of, later on, they like the descending of Christ, so some other groups would continue on this tradition, and they would keep those texts. So they liked it. So they had the belief before Jesus even came into the picture, the earth was meant to return to its original spiritual state. So that's interesting. So it would continue on with Christianity, and that would lead into other Gnostic Christian sects. So Christianity came out of Judaism. It comes from somewhere. Judaism came out of the Canaanite beliefs. And Canaanites also traded with the Sumerians, Egyptians.
Yeah. There was a blending of syncretism of all these religions in Hellenistic Greek traditions or whatever. They all just kind of mesh, just like in modern times where we listen to music and these genres just get mashed together as time goes by. So everybody's trying to create the next best version of this genre. So you get genres of music. I mean, if you followed music, you can kind of see how cultures create themselves, by just the mashing together of everything. And I would say back in the day, that's how everybody was. They related to people that weren't of their, religion or culture, and they, became brothers, because of they were neighbors or whatever. There was probably a whole lot of that going on, even way back when.
Yeah, 100%.
Country music, rap music,
on the Canaanites.
Hey, I got somebody that wants to join us, so I'm gonna bring them up real quick. See.
And I have to say, Fear, that is a gnarly beard, bro. I see you stroking that beard, man. That's just gnarly.
Oh, dude, you should have seen the beard you should have seen the beard that I grew before this one. It took me 6 years, and it came all the way down to my belly button.
That's right. You'd be a good Santa Claus, that's for sure.
Right, but I had spinal surgery. I have a metal plate holding my neck up. I have a metal plate from my C5 to C7. So like when I had the surgery, they're like, "You got to cut the beard off." I was like, oh, "Damn, all right, it'll grow back." So here we
Yeah,
are.
Nathan could grow a hell of a beard too. Nathan, he gets a big old beard going.
Yeah, I got to grow it back again.
That's right. I can't do it. I got
Right
this
back.
right here. I got that Fu Manchu or whatever, you know,
Hey
the
man,
Chinese.
back in my mid to late teens, I had the soul patch. I had a big old soul patch.
That's right. So I
Yeah,
gotta
he's
turn my
muted.
car.
Let me see
Yeah.
if he's in. Hey,
Damn it,
You can
God,
hear me?
sauce, we can't hear you.
no, that's not sauce.
Dude,
Sorry,
Is that sauce? No, that's not sauce, is it? No, we can't hear you, man. You're muted.
I
You
don't
gotta
know.
unmute yourself.
I don't know. I don't think so. Never mind. I stand corrected, man. My eyes are all blurry as shit today. I gotta seriously get this eye surgery done.
You gotta unmute yourself.
I reckon I'll be back. I'm just going to take a leak. Hopefully, I don't miss nothing too important.
Nah, we'll wait. We'll wait.
yeah, I turned my car on because my
Yeah.
battery was dying on the laptop, and then all of a sudden the audio switched over to my car. So I was like, "Oh shit!" I didn't want to hear like feedback going. And shit.
Yeah, you gotta unmute yourself. Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Oh, there.
Hybrid, you gotta unmute yourself.
Oh, hold on. That was that was Nathan's mic. No, that ain't his. That's somebody else's.
it might be mine.
Oh yeah, probably. What you on your car?
Yeah, I'm trying to discontinue, but leave the car on.
Yeah, dude, your microphone's a little bit muffled. It kind of sounds like it's sitting in a tin can.
It was in because my car.
Switch from your Bluetooth from your car to your phone and just try the speaker. That's what I have to do. Like whenever I jump in my truck and I jump on the audio, it fucks my microphone all up.
Yeah. So how am I sounding now? You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Okay, cool. It's working now.
Yeah, hybrid. You gotta mute. You gotta unmute yourself. Probably don't have.
Down in the
I think
down in
maybe
the-
he said that's by how. Maybe if I'm lip reading correct.
Huh?
down in the bottom left hand, it'll say mic. Click it.
Yeah, or like settings or whatever. Yeah, it was difficult for me early to mess around with it because the StreamYard or whatever, it's kind of new software for me too. So yeah, settings, audio, and you can
No,
click
I still
the
can't hear him.
Sorry, bro.
Can't hear him. Here, I'm gonna remove you from the stage just for right now until you figure out the settings, because we definitely can't hear you yet.
Sorry, buddy.
It
That
should.
sucks.
Just go to whatever phone you have. Just Google it. How to. Yeah, he already did it.
Good old technology.
Yeah, it should have just.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, we're already up on an hour now, guys. This is cool. I'm having a great time.
Yeah,
It's been a good shot. It's been pretty good. We chose a good one for sure.
Let's see, try it again.
Mike, good now?
Yep, there you go.
Mike, good now, is it?
Yeah.
Yep,
We can
Yeah.
hear you. Any blessings, bro?
Oh,
Good to meet
yo,
you.
excellent, excellent. Because the voice is a gift from God, you know? The voice
Right.
is everything. If you might not be, you can be blind, but if you have a tongue and lungs, then you're sorted, you know?
And logos has been translated to the word.
Word,
I think
voice, singing, mind,
yeah,
all sorts. Logos is beautiful. I love the word logos.
yeah, for real.
Logos, yeah.
Reason.
Sana
Reason.
Kumara, Sana Kumaris.
In the
Logos of this
beginning,
world,
there was
Gaia,
the
you know, to
word.
earth.
So, how's your day going, Hybrid? How you doing?
Well, we're well past midnight. It's getting past 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30 now in Scotland, Glasgow. You'll hear
Oh wow!
my voice. He's gifted me a creme de la creme. Vocally, my voice has been a gift from on high that the Creator has given me a voice that is. We're all children of a massive voice, you know. As you hear, Scott's accent comes through. This is Glasgow, Scotland here. Coming up, approaching 2 o'clock.
Wow, look at that view.
Oh, that is cool. That's cool.
Dude.
Even a Princess Paisley Park Studios. Paisley Park is out that way somewhere. Paisley out that way, west of Glasgow. I'm southwest Glasgow.
You look like you're straight out of the movie Highlander.
I was talking to my dad about Highlander the other day. I was talking about that movie the other day. There can be only one. That's a great line. Cool. Sean Connery, yeah.
McLeod. I love that shit.
And he went on, the actor, what's his name again? He went out to do Jim Morrison. Played Jim Morrison in the Doors movie.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer?
Val Kilmer, that's right, yeah. Is a girl's name, Valerie.
Yep.
Valerie. Deep. Yeah, Val Kilmer. The whole movie is an anomaly, a legendary anomaly, you know. But that's how biblical miracles work in the modern idiom, you know. That's how Christ comes to life in our through Disney and through Hollywood and through, and I guess in an extra sensory in a way. But Bollywood also has its thrones and its cherubs and its powers, you know. This is a different language, different linguistic, different take, you know.
So our topic today was the birth of baby Jesus, and around when he was born, and the facts around the what people are saying. We've got our frankincense and myrrh burning. We're over here burning.
Yeah, I have my frankincense here somewhere, buried under these. A stick of frankincense here somewhere. Should do. Yep. Here we go.
What I'm burning over here.
Good idea, friend. Can I
what
get
I'm
some
burning
names
over here.
Can I get some names here? My name's Hybrid. I should have introduced myself.
You got that dab.
Yeah, see, what I'm burning over here, it's called cereal milk.
Oh shit!
It's at 99%.
That's part of a complete balanced breakfast.
Hey, Breakfast of Champions, it's better than fucking Wheaties.
I don't know what they are, man. I'm too young for that. I'm too Scottish for that. Wheaties, is that breakfast cereal or something, yeah?
I prefer my flour, but this is good every now and then.
Nice. We got all our incense on deck. We got the frankincense and myrrh all on deck.
Did you read my text about A Course in Miracles? I was saying you guys this coming New Year's Day. It's not a challenge. It's just fundamentally sound advice through Christ. If you're a follower of Christ, if you're a Christian, if you've read the Bible, or if you're and it sounds like a lot of you know your Shinola from sugar from Shinola that Christ is alive in our hearts, and Christ can be accessed through our minds. This New Year's Day, this coming New Year's Day of 2025, get yourself the first lesson number 1 of 366 for a leap year. That puts it or overfolds into the next new year. A Course in Miracles. It can be accessed today. ACIM, acourseinmiracles.org. Yeah. Get on to that, because that is Jesus Christ, the word of Jesus Christ in the far off year of 1967, 68 through 71. It was published in 1973. by the Foundation for Inner Peace. And I recommend, guys, if you like a biblical text, this is Jesus' word, present, in present era, for the Aquarian age, for the unfolding Aquarian age. I guarantee you, you will be not spellbound, you will be miraculized.
You're not talking about Bashar, are you?
Say again, bro?
You're not talking about Bashar, are you?
I've heard of Bashar. I don't know what that word means, though. It's a name, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm not
Like a medium. He's like a, like he puts himself in a
Oh,
trance.
Bashir?
Yeah,
Jason?
Bashar, whatever.
Jason Bashir?
I'm not sure if that's the full name, but yeah, he like
Yeah, I
what is
recall
it?
something along those lines. I studied under Alice Bailey. She wrote a 17-volume series of books. Her contemporaries were the 1910 group: Alice Bailey, Madame Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine, Madame Blavatsky,
Oh, yeah.
Alice Bailey, a treatise on white magic, a treatise on cosmic fire, a treatise on so that's 1910 group. Before the First World War, she was writing, and throughout the Second World War, she was still writing her 17-volume series on theosophical, esoteric sciences. So I studied her Telepathy and the Etheric Vehicle. One of her books is one of her titles, and it's a short read, but it's a life altering experience. And in conjunction with Jesus' word in A Course in Miracles,
Yeah, I've done a good chunk of reading The Secret Doctrine by Blavatsky. Yeah, I'm a fan of the Theosophical Society. But Bashar is a channeler. He's like, I don't know.
channel, yeah. I'm a channel, I'm a channel. Yeah.
What's the fuck?
I
don't know how to do that shit.
And the word avatar sounds a bit kind of egotistical, and I sidestep the whole ego issue. That's not where I'm at. That's not part of my parlance. That allows us to fall into the pit of psychotherapy and all that kind of, and psychotherapy is a very good thing, in the modern age. It's a relatively new and not an exact science, obviously. It's a big wash of oceanic perplexion there, but in psychotherapy, to put tags and labels on things is I think it's not sinful, but it muddies the water somewhat,
Oh yeah.
Right on.
So
let me ask you real quick. What is Hey, Hybrid, what is your what do you know about the birth of Christ and why Christmas is celebrated on behalf of him?
I've tried to study and done it. I studied from various sources. Urantia book is a cracker. It's as David up Goliath's arse of books on the life of Christ. I'm sorry to use such frank language, but that analogy fits there. The Urantia book is an anomaly which is inexplicable. I think it was written in the 1950s of all decades, and the Urantia book talks about the first chapter is the local universe, the second chapter is Urantia, and the third chapter is the life and times of the life and times of Christ, and in there it's Archangel Super Seraphim, Super Naphim superscribe Archangel Gabriel describes Christ as being not as I know it puts things way at a picture, but not as an Aquarian or a Capricorn, but as a Gemini, as a Christ as a Gemini.
I heard about that too. Like to be exact, he wasn't born around December 25th. it was more like, you know,
Yeah,
just
maybe May, early June.
No,
something
May
like,
I
4th.
know May,
That's what
June.
I
It
am.
sounds crazy, but that's what Archangel Gabriel wrote in the Urantia book, which is a tome. You know, like Lord of the Rings, or like the Bible, or like the Torah. It's a massive tome, and it's intricate beyond words and fascinating. I couldn't stay with it because the wordage was so intricate and so beguiling that you just thought, if this is true, then I will live forever, and if I live forever, then I will get around to finishing this book, you know. But Urantia book, I scanned a few pages, and still cross reference these days. But the Urantia book is a fantastic piece of work, and the Urantia group are very, very. You talk about America deep state, but these people, the Theosophicals of today, the Theosophical organization of today, the light workers of present age Aquaria, they're deep, 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 deep wide, deep and wide, you know, and very deep down.
well,
And
Jesus,
you guys, I guess you guys are emissaries of that that idiom, that ideology. I guess you guys are on the forefront of from what I don't know your names. I was tuning in for a good hour there, 45 minutes or so.
so while it's likely that the December 25th was a traditional way to celebrate Jesus' birth, the evidence points to a likely birth in the spring or fall based on biblical, historical, and astronomical clues.
I would have
So yeah,
thought. I would have
I was
thought.
going to read something too, if that's cool. I got something more from the Gospel of James, and I want to mention about Mary being offered at the age of 3 to the temple, and then wanting to get rid of her at the age of 12, which was common in ancient Jewish practices. So that way they wouldn't be seen as defiling the temple. So that way the priest wouldn't lust over the young girls. So they would marry them off, basically. So if you're right, I can read this part if you're cool.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, listen.
yeah,
Listen.
yeah.
So this is from the Proto-Gospel of
Go
James,
ahead.
which is non-canonical text written in the 2nd century, 145 AD. So this is making it older than the birth story of the Gospel of Matthew. All right. So this is in chapter 7 of the text. Months passed for the child, so this is Mary. When she turned 2, Joachim said, now now we should take her up to the temple of the Lord to fulfill the promise we made. So they offered Mary as a offering to God when she was born, seeing her as a miracle birth. So they want to give her a temple as a thanks offering, which was common back then. Otherwise, the master may send some harm our way, and our gift be deemed unacceptable. Anna replied, let's wait until she is 3. Otherwise, she may be homesick for her father and mother. Joseph agreed. We will wait. When the child turned 3, Joachim said, we should call the undefiled daughters of the Hebrews and have them take torches. Let them set up blazing, that the child not turn back and her heart be taken captive away from the temple of the Lord. They did this until they had gone up to the Lord's temple, and the priest of the Lord, so one of the high priests, received her and gave her a kiss, blessing her and saying, the Lord has made your name great for all generations. Through you will the Lord reveal his redemption to the sons of Israel at the end of time. He set her on the 3rd step of the altar, as she's an offering, and the Lord God cast his great grace down upon her. She danced on her feet, and the entire house of Israel loved her. Her parents went away amazed, and praising God, the master of the child did not turn back. Mary was in the temple of the Lord, cared for like a dove. So that's important now. Doves were priestesses, virgin brides, receiving her food from the hand of an angel. But when she reached her 12th birthday, the priest held a council and said, see, Mary has become 12 years old in the Lord's temple. What then shall we do with her to keep her from defiling the sanctuary of the Lord our God? So this is when later on they would think of how to get rid of her, basically to place her into the hands of someone else to marry her off. So this was common practice back then. Now, they were aged anywhere between 6 and 14 as soon as they hit puberty, and that was the age they were married off. And this is recorded in the Jewish Talmud, which also mentions their marriage practices. And it's got some disgusting shit in the Talmud, such as a child of 3 years of age that has had intercourse is still conceived as a virgin. It's disgusting. You also see this practice carried on by Muslims in the hadiths, which is horrible. Thightening is a practice of, you can look this up by the way, it's Islamic law that it's still enforced by, say, Hamas, for example, terrorist organizations. Many Islamic countries, all of them still practice this shit. It's still acceptable. Thightening. And one of the Muslim kings, I forgot, of the 12th century was renowned for practicing this evil shit. So thightening is foreplay of the underage and girls in their period. So that was common practice in the Abrahamic world, which is pretty messed up. Very common practice in the ancient world. So when Jesus goes to the temple, you have children shouting, "Save us." He calls them Laestus in Greek, which means predator, pirate, human trafficker. The children praise him as the son of David, the Messiah. What's going on here? So if you look at the Antiquity, again, the doves, priestesses, virgin brides, raised in the temple to conceive the Messiah, to be passed on to the Jewish elite, the noble classes. So when Jesus is going through the tables, flipping them over, he's not just freeing pigeons. You don't get crucified as a rebel for releasing pigeons. When you're stopping a sex trafficking organization and the use of prostitutes, then you're going to get killed as a rebel because you've just challenged the nobility and the religious establishment as well as the political establishment. So that's why they strung him on the cross naked, why they tried to give him myrrh, a love potion, to try to get him, why they dressed him in
there's this new show or a documentary called Christspiracy. Have you guys heard of it?
No.
So there's a documentary called
what is it on?
It has its own website. It's not on any streaming platform, but it's free to watch because like people have like paid it forward or whatever to watch. Like they've donated money to pay it forward for people to watch it for free. And
I need to get your name, bro, because you followed me. Birthing a New World.
My name is Lorenzo.
Lorenzo
Navarre. You can find me on Facebook.
My name's Hybrid.
So, right on, Hybrid. That's what's up. So yeah, this Christspiracy is about livestock, and the guy is saying like that they in the temple were profiting off of selling livestock for the slaughter celebration of like the slaughtering of lambs, and they were saying like these Pharisees were up to their knees in the blood of the lamb, so they'd have to make draining shafts in the temple to drain out all the blood because they were sacrificing like hundreds of thousands of lambs, and where we get the term livestock from, it is like the stock market where Jesus was turning the tables over because these people were profiting off of the slaughtering of lambs. And this is so I've been on this fast. This is like day 6 of the Daniel fast. I was actually inspired by that film to follow through with this fast where Daniel says, feed us nothing but fruits and vegetables and water, and you go ahead and feed your men wine and meat and everything, and you give us 10 days to see how we look and how they look, and you'll see that we'll be more healthier, we're stronger, and all that. So this movie Christspiracy talks about, it says basically like how would Jesus kill an animal, or what is the spiritual way to kill an animal? And the church has kind of kept it for all these years because they've been profiting off of the slaughtering of animals, like Chick-fil-A and all these, companies.
Man, don't put Chick-fil-A into this,
There's
man.
also
like
a Jewish
Chick-fil-A,
Christian
bro.
text, too, by the way, that states that Jesus rejects the sacrificed Passover lamb. And
I'm on day 6 of all vices are,
You might
I've
go
been
get some
cut off.
chicken tomorrow. Shit.
I've had nothing but fruits and vegetables and water for the past 6 days,
Yeah.
going on this fast. No candy, no soda, no meat, no smoking weed. No, all I don't smoke cigarettes or nothing. So like this fast is extreme. It's like way more than a vegan fast. It's,
Props to you.
like,
And it's
So I
like
also want to read, if that's okay, guys. I want to read some of my translation because Lorenzo mentioned about the Gospel of Matthew. I want to mention something for the whole audience to show. So this is from the actual translator from the Greek text that translators today suck balls on. They have butchered the text, and I'm going to show everyone what here is the original. Now, the people forget about the crowds. Jesus took them to a crowd, and I'm going to show you something I haven't even mentioned in my online videos yet. So I'm going to start with 21.9 of Gospel of Matthew. You can bring up your Gospels if you want, follow along if you want, but I'm going to start. So, and the multitudes also translates to crowds and people that going before him and those following were shouting, Hosanna, save us, to the Son of David. I haven't told that thing. Save us. Keep this in mind. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, translates also to Master, not just Lord. Hosanna translates to save us. In the highest, or translates to most exalted, most elevated. And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up, or translates to agitated, shaken in commotion. So gone crazy, crazo, saying, or questioned, or they stated, or reasoned, or uttered, who is this? And the mob, or translates to crowd or people, said this is the prophet Jesus, the one from the Nazareth of Galilee. What happens? He goes to the temple, 21.12. And Jesus entered into the temple, or translates to sanctuary, and cast out all those who were selling, or translates to who sold. And buying, translates to purchasing, ransoming, or acquiring a slave in the temple or sanctuary, and overturned the tables of the money changers and seats of those selling, or translate to who sold, the flock of doves, which can come from the word Pallades, which can also be in reference to priestesses, young virgin brides. And he spoke, or he reasoned to them, or stated to them. So this word here would be lego, coming from the word logos, to them. It is written, the house of me will be called a house of prayer. You, however, have made it a spalion, which means a den or a grotto or a hideout or a cave, a drug den, as in grottos, oracles would use caves to do their drugs and to receive visions. For pirates, rebels, bandits, raiders, predators, or brigands or human traffickers, laestus, not thief. The word they've used in English is not the right word. Kieftus means thief in Greek. The word leston comes from the word laestus, which means exactly what I just stated. Pirate, a bandit, a rebel, someone who kidnaps and sells children. And the blind, or translates to mentally blind, those who cannot see right from wrong. And the lame came to him in the temple or sanctuary, and he therapioed, he healed, he cured, he served, he took care of, or helped, or treated them medically. Therapio means to treat them, to render medical service, to give them narcotics, to heal their ailments, or to preach to them. It can translate to all these different things. So what's going on here? He's taking the temple drugs. He heals the people with them. This is why you see in the Gospel of Mark, he bans them from taking a vessel or the vessels through the courtyards. What are the vessels? Containing the drugs. When the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonders that he did, the children in the temple were cheering or shouting, translates to crying out for vengeance. Yeah. Hosanna, meaning what? Save us. To the Son of David. They were angry. And they said to him, this is the priest, do you hear what these children are saying? And Jesus said to them, yes. Never did you read out of the mouth of children or the innocent and suckling babies, you have prepared praise. If you've made them prepare praises for you, but you have harmed them. So this is what's going on. Then Jesus says to the crowds as well, whoever harms a child should tie a millstone around their neck and cast themselves into the sea and drown themselves. This is what's going on. This is why they really killed Jesus. This is what they're hiding from you. This is what's going on in the proto-gospel of James. Mary is the same dove that was raised in the temple as a virgin bride to be handed off into the hands of older men. So Jesus gone to the temple to stop this shit, the same practice that his mother was a victim of. This is why he took the crowd, why they were scared of him, because they were scared of the crowd that would mutilate them, because they were taking their children. Why were children praising that Jesus? Why was he associated with prostitutes? The prostitutes that were associated with Jesus were the victims of the sex trade that he saved. That is big news.
The term lay state is like, it has a deeper meaning though too. Like they could be involved in all kinds of money trading, like, you know, the drug trade, the trading and selling, buying and selling of animals. Like they had the lay state term. It's a very broad, so it's like they were pirates, like people that were into the buying and selling and profiting from all different types of, filth. The kidnapping and selling of people, the selling of drugs, animals. They were involved in every
other civilizations too.
Yeah, it was fucking enterprise.
It was associated with violence, or even being a rebel against your own people or to another nation. Another thing I want to mention quickly too before I forget is the actions of the first Christians, Gnostic Christians. What were they doing? Running through brothels, rescuing children, going through the places that Romans would leave their children out to die and rescue the children that were left out to die. Simon Magus, his wife, who was also some viewed as the feminine aspect of the Holy Spirit reincarnated in flesh. Her name was Helen. Some even viewed her as a reincarnation of Helen of Troy. But long story short, she was a prostitute, a slave. Simon Magus, who was baptized by Philip, a disciple of Jesus, rescued her from a brothel and then later married her. So she was following him, became his best student. They fell in love and married. So he didn't marry her straight away. They built a connection. What were Christians doing? Taking root after Simon Magus, rescuing children. Why? Because of what Jesus did. This is why this stuff has been deleted. Why the translations today suck. Why they hide this from you still. Because they don't want you to realize that their religion is built upon the sex trade that Jesus challenged.
Yes.
Yahweh. He was a god of pedos, a god of war and storms. He was a Canaanite god. He was the brother of Moloch and Animal.
Go read Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is one of them.
Mentions it too. Like even the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint, which is copied from the original Hebrew text, all lost to time.
I'm actually about to start reading the Septuagint. I'm about to actually start reading the Septuagint.
It's good. It's way better. Even the story of Job is shorter.
I actually got another copy on my.
The story of Job's been changed too. In the original story, Isaac was sacrificed. This is why Abraham goes down the mountain by himself. Everything's been swapped around and fucked with. In Numbers 31.32, the young girls are offered to the temple. Basically, would have been offered to the temple. 32 virgins are demanded as a tribute or tax for the Lord. 16,000 are forced into marriages. That's sexual assault by the orders of Yahweh. So through Moses. So we have here a war god. So 32, what happens to them? Were they sacrificed alongside the animals, or were they kept by the priest and married into the temples, which I think is more likely the case, which was going on. So the Jewish people were also Canaanites. Hebrew was a Canaanite language. It's the last surviving Canaanite language is Hebrew. They all came from a Canaanite tribe. The city of Jerusalem was founded by the Hyksos, a Canaanite tribe who worshipped El Elyon.
Yeah.
Yahweh is in the King James Version, Yahweh has been replaced with the word Lord. So they don't use, in the New King James Version, they don't use Yahweh, they use the Lord.
Yep, and even Lord went out.
Might I separate slightly somewhat here while we're on the subject? Well, this I guess the space is dedicated to discussion of the birth of Jesus. I'm going to have the Urantia books. I don't know if you can read the text there. The birth of Jesus goes into quite some detail here. It's one page, or it's 2 pages, but it's half a page overlapping into the.
Read it. Go ahead. Read it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
go
want to
ahead.
hear it.
Go ahead. Read it.
Breathe in. Take it back. Your mind will return. I promise you. I promise you guys.
That
Every
dude got a picture of Beyonce in the background. Look at him.
I've got the
Shit. Beyonce poster.
future, but transtemporal are the angelic forces. You know. My excuse me if I falter because my vision at this point in time is not perfect, although I guess laser correction might ensue at some point. Okay, the birth of Jesus. This is part 8 of a series of chapters. All that night, Mary was restless, so that neither of them slept much. By the break of day, the pangs of childbirth were well in evidence, and at noon, August 21st, 7 BC, with the help and kind ministrations of women, fellow travelers, Mary was delivered. A male child, Jesus of Nazareth, was born into the world, was wrapped in the clothes which Mary had brought along for such a possible contingency, and laid in a nearby manger, in just the same manner as all babies before that day and since have come into the world. This promised child was born, and on the 8th day, according to the Jewish practice, he was circumcised and formally named Jesus. In brackets. The next day, after the birth of Jesus, Joseph made his enrollment, meeting a man they had talked with 2 nights previously at Jericho. Joseph was taken by him to a well-to-do friend who had room at the inn and who said he would gladly exchange quarters with the Nazareth couple. That afternoon they moved up to the inn where he lived for almost 3 weeks until they found lodgings in the home of a distant relative of Joseph. The second day after the birth of Jesus, Mary sent word to Elizabeth that her child had come and received word in return, inviting Joseph to Jerusalem to talk over all their affairs with Zacharias. The following week, Joseph went to Jerusalem to confer with Zacharias. Both Zacharias and Elizabeth had become possessed with the sincere conviction that Jesus was indeed to become the Jewish. Turns the page here again. 2 pages. I'll stop after halfway down this second page here.
You good, bro? Go ahead.
So deliverer was indeed the Jewish deliverer, the Messiah, and that their son John was to be his chief of aides, his right-hand man of destiny. And since Mary held these same ideas, it was not difficult to prevail upon Joseph to remain in Bethlehem, the city of David, so that Jesus might grow up to become the successor of David on the throne of all Israel. Accordingly, they remained in Bethlehem more than a year, Joseph meantime working some at his carpenter's trade. At the noontide birth of Jesus, the seraphim of Urantia assembled under their directors did sing anthems of glory over the Bethlehem manger. But these utterances of praise were not heard by human ears, nor shepherds, nor any other mortal creatures came to pay homage to the babe of Bethlehem. The day of arrival of certain priests from Ur, who were sent down from Jerusalem to Zacharias. These priests from Mesopotamia had been told some time before, as a strange religious teacher of their country, he had a dream among which he was informed that the light of life was about to appear on earth as a babe and among the Jews. And thither went these teachers looking for the light of life. And many weeks of futile search of Jerusalem. I'm almost finished here. Many weeks of futile search in Jerusalem. They were about to return to Ur when Zacharias met them and disclosed his belief that Jesus was the object of the quest, and sent them on to Bethlehem, where they found the babe and left their gifts with Mary, his earth mother. The babe was almost 3 weeks old at the time of their visit. These wise men saw no star to guide them to Bethlehem. The beautiful legend of the Star of Bethlehem originated in this way. Jesus was born August. Legend of the Star of Bethlehem originated in this way. Jesus was born August 21st at noon, 7 BC, on May 29th, 7 BC. There occurred an extraordinary conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the constellation of Pisces, and it is a remarkable astronomical fact that similar conjunctions occurred on September 29th and December 5th of the same year. Upon the basis of these extraordinary but wholly natural events, the well-meaning zealots of the succeeding generation constructed the appealing legend of the Star of Bethlehem, and the anchoring Magi led thereby to the manger, where they beheld and worshipped the newborn babe. Oriental and near-Oriental minds delight in fairy stories, and there are continually spinning such beautiful myths about the lives of their religious leaders and political heroes. In the absence of printing, when most human knowledge was passed by word of mouth from one generation to another, it was very easy for myths to become traditions, and for traditions eventually to become accepted as facts. That's you,
Yeah.
right? That's you, right?
Hey, that's good. Hey, I want to end it right here. Hey, I'm going to end the stream right here. We're going to talk more after this, but yeah, that was actually good. We're going to end it right there because I want. You want to add something before I end it?
I can have that as well.
It is said like Jesus of Nazareth, but he's actually born in Bethlehem in the Bible, it says. But Nazareth is more like a hidden name or a secret name. I'm not exactly sure, because he's the Nazarene or whatever. More or less sounds like a Nassim, like one of the Nassim, So yeah, I just wanted to add that in, like people call him the Jesus of Nazareth, but he wasn't actually born in a place called Nazareth, because the archaeologists say that they've never found a place called Nazareth.
No.
I reckon he was more likely born in the Galilean region, more than likely. That's what scholars think. Well,
yeah.
But something I wanted to mention as well about that mentioned in that text is the Holy Spirit possession. That's a very ancient belief as well, even in regards of Jesus' baptism, being possessed by the Holy Spirit or being adopted by God during that possession as well. Even the belief that one could be possessed by an angel or become angelic. As angel could also mean human messenger as well. So I just want to point it out. Beautiful voice, by the way, Hybrid. I loved it. So it's cool. I can listen to you reading bedtime stories, bro. That'd be sick.
Maybe one of these days or whatever, we should end this like with a prayer or something. Pray for everybody. Pray for the world. You know what I mean? Like send good vibes out to everybody. Shit like that. It should be one of those.
Go do it now. What you talking about? Do that now, and then I end the streaming.
I'm not a good person at leading prayers, but you know what I mean. Like it's a suggestion. Maybe we should do that. You know what I mean? Send a good prayer out to everybody.
Can I get your names, guys? Can I zip round? There's 5 of us here, so
yeah.
Purple Hat. What's your name, friend?
Hey, how you doing, bro?